With the prevalence of mods coming to even consoles in the last gen, mod support is no longer a PC exclusive perk. Is it too much to ask of CD Projekt Red to deliver robust mod support after such a hectic and long-awaited launch? Hello again to all my Cyberpunk 2077 fans out there. My name is Ato Tarashi Neriku, and it is once again time for a Cyberpunk discussion. As the gap nears closer and closer to that ever so faithful day, there are many of us, well, who am I kidding at this point? I, in particular, am curious to know about the state of mods for Cyberpunk 2077. It is no surprise that CD Projekt has remained silent on this front when it comes to mod support. After all, it isn't a mainstream feature of majority of other games, so why should we even expect to receive mod support at all? Well, my friends on PC, and hopefully those soon to be on PS5 and Xbox Series X, I believe there is some good news ahead if you're wishing for mod support for CD Projekt's latest release. Sure, it takes some reading in between the lines a bit, as news has been slow on this topic in particular, but here are some reasons why I believe we can look forward to some form of mod support from Cyberpunk 2077 in the future. Number 1. The Witcher 3 supported mods. Yes, it was some time ago now at this point, but the same consumer-friendly studio probably hasn't changed on us overnight. It is a fact that many companies have tried and notably failed to monetize the lucrative paid mod market. Will CD Projekt Red turn to the dark side, much like every other developer? This could be a consideration perhaps if they were similar in any ways to the likes of EA or Activision, but as it stands, I would have to firmly disagree. Number 2. Consumer-friendly practices. CD Projekt has been the bastion of hope for how all game development studios should be. When asked about a price hike on the next generation of consoles, CD Projekt responded that there is no need for a $70 price tag for next generation console games. Additionally, CD Projekt will also be giving out free upgrades to all next gen versions of the game if you indeed bought a digital version on last gen consoles, last gen being considered PS4 and Xbox One respectively. One of their subsidiary companies, GOG, also known as Good Old Gamers, is known to avoid industry practices such as DRM on their products. This gives us some insight into the culture, monetization practices, and structure of the company. Let's keep in mind the convenient lack of DRM for now, as I'll touch more on this later. Number 3. Red Engine mod support and tools. Consider for a moment the simple fact that the mod kit and tools to openly mod The Witcher 3 have been provided by CD Projekt themselves. This is the first time that they as a company released these tools publicly. Yes, mods for The Witcher and The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings existed long before the Red Kit, but they weren't official mods in the sense that they were made by a means of reverse engineering methods of brute forcing the code as opposed to mods developed by users of the Red Kit provided by CD Projekt. Do you think for a second that CD Projekt spent time and valuable resources developing those tools just to then discard them merely 5 years later? I don't think so. CD Projekt has been known to support their games and products long after extended time periods. They have gone as far as to offer graphically enhanced versions of The Witcher 3 years later at no additional cost. To again bolster my hopes, both The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 were built on the Red Engine. While it is true that Cyberpunk 2077 was developed on a newer version of this engine, getting support out for the new updated Red Kit might be as simple as a few tweaks. Let's face it, stranger things have happened in this year alone. Number 4. They somewhat directly confirmed it. Although mod support at launch is not considered a priority, let's look way back to 2019. I know it seems so long ago, but the community manager, Marcin Momont, wrote in a thread featured on the Cyberpunk official forums that CD Projekt is not interested in sharing at the moment. For a brief second there, that comment really concerned mod enthusiasts like myself. However, if you look a little deeper into it, Momont clearly states, at the moment. Additionally, the post goes on to say, obviously we would love to support the modding community in the future, but for the time being we want to focus on releasing the game first. Personally, I think that's a reasonable position for them to have, as there is no need for them to overpromise on any features like this for the time being. Not to mention, it may be easy to overlook non-essential features like this when you're responsible for completing development on the most pre-ordered game in history. On a final note, most games don't support mods at launch. Take a game like Skyrim for instance. Considered the king of moddable games, yet it didn't have an in-depth mod kit at launch, even though it severely needed it. As for The Witcher 3, although the mod support was limited, it didn't offer basic mod support or tools until nearly 3 months post-launch, so for many of us, there is still hope. Number 5. Multiplayer could be a huge sign of what's to come. To tie it all together, let's consider the new multiplayer feature. This is single-handedly the biggest tell that CD Projekt has given us about mod support for the single-player version of Cyberpunk 2077. On the surface, it may seem like no more than a huge nothing burger. However, the keen-eyed among us may have had lingering questions pertaining to this feature long before it was confirmed. Cyberpunk 2077 will be CD Projekt's first game to openly feature a dynamic PvP multiplayer design. Although extended details on it are currently hush-hush as of right now, there is one big detail that was revealed. It was recently confirmed that the multiplayer mode won't be a mode at all, but an entirely different game. Many developers have used this tactic before as a means to cleverly market their game as more feature-rich than what it truly is, but when you consider the verbiage of what is said here, it is unmistakably huge news. It has been said time and time again that multiplayer in Cyberpunk 2077 is a standalone game or mode. Do you get it now? Okay, enough playing around, let me go ahead and tell you what's going on already. When considering mod support in any other single player experience, you don't need to take into consideration balance. Modding a game fundamentally changes the code, parameters, and abilities of in-game objects. If CD Projekt is building an entirely different and new experience for multiplayer, it must be assumed that they didn't want to directly affect the base single player game. Take this excerpt from VG247. Joint CEO at CD Projekt Red, Adam Kaczynski, explained during the studio's latest earnings briefings that called the multiplayer facet of the game mode is in fact something of a misnomer. According to Kaczynski, CD Projekt Red is actually viewing the multiplayer more of a standalone product. It can be assumed that in this language, multiplayer standalone product could possibly have an entirely separate launcher. Why is this a big deal, you may be asking? Or why would you even bother? Just bolt it on the base game and call it a day. Consider how Call of Duty Warzone is a standalone experience from Modern Warfare or Call of Duty Cold War now. Because the game receives regular updates and separate updates, it is necessary for the launchers to segregate and become a sort of separate but equal entity. Many of the same assets are shared between all versions of the game, and the engine may very well be identical, but in the end, fundamentally, and where it matters, it's a different game. Well, that's because of something called server verification. It's a process that all PvP multiplayer games consider when sharing a centralized server. This included adding a form of DRM, remember I told you to keep that in mind for later on, or certification that each player must pass to ensure the integrity of connections to the server. This is obviously necessary for balancing purposes. The same must be assumed for Cyberpunk 2077 single player and multiplayer respectively. It can be inferred that it's built as a standalone product because they don't want user modded code interfering with the integrity, balance, and ecosystem of the multiplayer experience. Ipso facto, Cyberpunk 2077 mod support can now in some ways be confirmed. I know it might sound a little advantageous or crazy, but think about it. What other reasons exist for them to purposely segment the releases like this? It is possible that they needed more time, or they want to entice players back in at a later date, but that's what the DLC is for. Additionally, I don't believe that Cyberpunk 2077 standalone multiplayer will release as a free-to-play experience either. Otherwise, I think they just might have released that one small little detail by now. But hey, that's just one man's theory. Feel free to chime in with any of your theories, as I am all ears. But now it's your turn. Join the conversation in the chat, comments, or in my community Discord linked in the description below. What do you think? Are you excited about the potentiality of mods coming to Cyberpunk 2077? Do you think it'll have better implementation and support than in the past? I truly would like to hear what you have to say. With that, Now is a fantastic time to like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it helps me out more than you could ever know, and better yet, it can ensure that you never miss a Cyberpunk 2077 update. So, what are you waiting for? Oh yeah, you're probably still waiting on Cyberpunk 2077 to finally release.